I guess, where we're sitting with the budget and some of the things the council wants to accomplish tonight. And the way the process works is, after tonight, there has to be a budget, an actual proposed official budget that is then published for public review. Then and only then is it really an official budget being presented to the public. Everything that's been done up to now is strictly workshop, talking about different ideas on priorities in the budget and potential revenue sources. Part of the problem with some of our revenue sources, with comment, to address the comment that, well, live with what you got. Problem way the state of Nebraska handles a lot of this stuff is we get 1 month advance notice knowing if we're not going to have revenue stream or not. It's, all we can do is make an educated guess based on historic records of where we hope to be in the budget process. As we have gone through the past year and seen some of our revenue sources go away or reduced significantly, and a down economy on top of that, we've tried to make adjustments as we went along from the management and individual department standpoint. I think you'll see at the end of this fiscal year, when you look at each individual budget, that a lot of them will be lower than what was proposed to be spent for the year as a result of not having revenue we were anticipating and counting. As we head into this year, there's still a lot of unknowns. Primarily due with the sales tax refunds, also dealing with what's happening with the economy, also dealing with the fact that the state legislature, in addition to the things we talked about, has passed many sales tax exemptions that didn't know previously exist. In fact, one state senator who's responded to a resolution adopted by the council asking the governor and legislature for action, introduced a bill last year to repeal all sales tax exemptions. Every special interest group comes along and they have their deal that they want to get exempted, to the point that better than half of every taxable item back in the days when you guys advocated getting the sales tax, Jim, has disappeared. No longer collects a sales tax. So he was advocating you could wipe out property tax in the state of Nebraska, just putting the things that used to be taxed back on the tax return. So when we're dealing with all these unknowns, all we can do is do the best we can and still provide 24/7 services to the community and the things that the public deserves to have us do. Those operations aren't just something you can shut down one day and hope that it's there the next day. Most of our departments have to be there 24/7. And we've got a lot of really dedicated people who work very hard at their jobs. And they take a lot of heat as a result of some of the information that's gone on throughout the community. They're doing the very best that they can. I think the relationship that we've had between management and the employees, between the actions of the council, and the fact that we're one of the very few first-class communities in the entire state of Nebraska that has absolutely no unions or bargaining units. And that's because of that trust factor is there. It's also because we try to be fair. We do comparability studies with other like municipalities of similar size and similar locations to make sure that our employees are treated fair and equitable. And then we live by the motto, 24/7, 365, we're going to provide those services to the public. We take every single penny in this budget extremely serious. Every one of us do. And what we're going to go through when we get to the budget process, and I'm going to ask the council to do, is we'll pull the screen up and we have a whiteboard up there. If we want to get the tax levy, and it's not because of increased spending, it's because the revenue sources have disappeared. If we want to get back to that tax levy, because the only other place it can go up is property taxes, we're going to get back to that level What we have to do is carve $421,000 more out of the proposed budget, either through additional revenue sources or additional cuts, to get back to that 42-cent level where it was last year. And that's the general fund, the bonded indebtedness, and the airport authority all rolled into one. That is over $1 million less than the state of Nebraska allows us to be. That's because we have been fiscally responsible. And so that's the mission, I guess, that we're here tonight to try to accomplish. And when we have issues like streets, which everybody screams and yells and hollers about, that nothing's been done for year after year after year after year, those things are expensive. If you want those things, you gotta be able to pay for them. And we've gotta have a consistency to do that year after year after year, because it always comes down to this crunch time, and that's the thing that goes, because it's a high dollar item. So we need to look at, be creative as we can in what the state of Nebraska allows us to do in generating revenue. And that's why we're going to talk about occupation tax. No tax is ever popular. Absolutely is not. But there are communities who use this, and it's primarily to capture that additional trade that's in your community, especially if you're an interstate community, if you're a job center community like we are. It's the passive type of expenditure that a lot of people don't notice necessarily. The same theory as sales tax is used. At least with an occupation tax, it's a relationship directly between the business and the city. The state doesn't get its greedy, grubby little hands on one nickel. So that is what brings us to talk about the occupation tax. Every community does it in some sense. We've done it on cell phones and landlines and some other things, and it's a revenue generator. It's a little bit on everybody's bill, but it goes to pay for things like the 911 communication center, which is very expensive to operate on a 24/7 basis. We have a relationship with the county where we share the expenditure of that, so you don't have to have two agencies mandated by law to have 24/7 communication. And we network with all the fire departments throughout the county, the emergency services, the ambulance, the law enforcement, and emergency management as far as storm monitoring and everything. So, you know, we have to look at those creative things, because you're actually then asking the people who use the services to help pay for it, without it all going on the property taxpayer, which is a very unbalanced situation, unlike sales tax or occupation tax. So there are examples that beyond that, for instance, in the city of Grand Island, who wanted to recruit the state fair to be in Grand Island rather than in Lincoln. And they convinced the legislature to do that, but they as a community had to build proper, adequate facilities to do that. And they passed a 1.5% occupation tax on restaurants and lodging. And there's a few other things for prepared food items, those kind of things included in this very lengthy, complicated ordinance that they adopted. And they looked at some other things, as have other communities in the past, and we've explored some of that, such as fuel, such as groceries, such as liquor sales. Wheel tax, but the voters didn't want that, so you know that's off the table. And there are issues with each one of those things of fuel, groceries, and liquor. And Jordan and I have talked to a lot of state officials and trying to find an answer there. And there are some people in the Department of Revenue says they can find no reason why you can't do it.